Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
When we think of the Prophet Muhammad, we think of a great leader, Dr. Shabir. But the Prophet Muhammad was not afraid to show emotions, the full range of emotions. And we understand that the Prophet Muhammad wept. He cried on certain occasions. Dr. Shabir, I thought it would be interesting for us to look at some of those occasions in which he cried to see, what was going on there.
Yeah, there are several such occasions. And actually, these were put together in a sermon that is collected together as the sermons of a certain scholar, Muhammad Owais, and in the English version, his name is curiously given as Ewas, E-W-A-S. Nonetheless, it's an excellent collection of sermons, and among the sermons is this one about the Prophet, peace be upon him, weeping. And this scholar mentioned 7 circumstances in which the Prophet, peace be upon him, wept. One was when he prayed. During his prayer, he would be weeping, especially his prayer at night, when he prayed alone. When he heard the Quran being recited, on one occasion, for example, he asked one of his companions to read the Quran to him, and the companion happened to be reading from the 4th chapter of the Quran, where there is a verse that says, فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جِئْنَا مِنْ كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ بِشَهِيدٍ وَجِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا. How will it be when on that day God is going to call witnesses from every nation against the people, and God will call the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as a witness against the people of his time. So he wept, and probably he was moved to think that he would be in that position to have to give evidence against his own people, meaning that he's delivered the message to them, and it's not his fault that they did not, receive his message well. So these are two circumstances. A third circumstance can be added here when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, visited the grave of his mother. He is known to have wept. He wept when his son Ibrahim died in infancy. And it is also mentioned in close connection with this that the Prophet, peace be upon him, wept when his daughter Kulthum died. The Prophet, peace be upon him, is known to have wept on one occasion when there were some Muslims defending the Islamic frontiers, and he saw a vision in which he is given the information that they died, one after another. He wept on that occasion. It is mentioned also that the Prophet, peace be upon him, wept when he saw a young man whose name was Mus'ab, the son of Umair. This young man, prior to embracing the message of the Prophet, peace be upon him, was from a wealthy family. He always wore, the best clothes, and it's said that, the best perfume that could be smelled from quite a distance. And after he embraced Islam, the Prophet's message, he was disowned by his family. And so he was cut off from that source of wealth and luxury. And he was seen wearing rags. And when the Prophet, peace be upon him, saw him in that condition, the Prophet, peace be upon him, wept. So these on these and other occasions, the Prophet, peace be upon him, is known to have wept. The one last thing that is deserving of mention here is that the Prophet, peace be upon him, wept for his followers in general, just worrying about the outcome of his followers. How will his followers be in this world after his death, and how will they fare in the life hereafter? So he was worried about us, and that drove him to tears.
So Dr. Shabir, it's really interesting because when we think about the way men should be, right, we often think about them not crying. But the Prophet Muhammad, as a great leader, as our example, he was crying.
Yeah. I mean, as a boy growing up, I remember the dictum, grown men don't cry, big boys don't cry, right? But in fact, it's not only the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as a great leader who's known to have wept. If we look into the Bible, we see that there were great leaders who and prophets and notable persons who wept. From the Quran, we know that Jacob wept for his sons. In the Bible, we know that Joseph also wept when he received his brother Benjamin. And we can see from the Bible as well that Jesus, on whom be peace, wept. In fact, when his friend Lazarus died, in the Gospel according to John, chapter 11, it is said that Jesus wept.
Mm-hmm.
And this is noted as one of the shortest verses in the King James Version of the Bible, because it's just 2 words, he wept.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus also, in the Gospel according to Luke, is shown to have wept when he contemplated Jerusalem and thinking about this is the place where the prophets came and preached, and people rejected the prophets. So he was weeping, and he noted his own circumstance, that he's also like the prophets before him, preaching to the people, and he's receiving a negative response from Jerusalem as well. So the great men can actually weep. We are human beings. We have emotions, and there's no harm letting it come out.
I believe the Quran also talks about weeping. I'm not sure if it talks about it in the context of men, but it just talks in different contexts about weeping.
Yes, in general, the Quran says, أَفَبِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ تَعْجَبُونَ وَتَضْحَكُونَ وَلَا تَبْكُونَ. Is it, are people are wondering about the Quran in a negative way, like, like what kind of book is this, and, not receiving it. So the Quran is, scolding them. Are you like wondering about this book, and you are laughing instead of weeping? So they should be weeping, thinking about what will be their outcome in the life hereafter if they don't listen to this message. But in a more positive way, the Quran shows that believers are such as would worship God, and they would, prostrate, weeping before God. And in fact, this is a common response from Muslims in reading the Quran, prostrating, weeping during the prayers. Especially during the Taraweeh, the night prayers in the month of Ramadan, where a lot of the Quran is being recited. So as Muslims listen to the Quran, contemplate it, and one eventually breaks down crying.
Why do you think people weep when they hear the Quran?
Well, there could be a variety of reasons. We can say in general, there could be strong emotions, and the emotions might be positive or negative. On the negative side, one might be in fear. One is hearing verses of the Quran describing the fire of hell and its tortures. And, one is gripped by that and begins to weep and prays that we don't go there. It could be positive. One is hearing about the delights of paradise, and that evokes a strong emotion. Mostly it's awe, like people are, so enraptured with a closeness to God at that time. One feels that closeness. It's almost like, let's say a child didn't see their parents for a long time. And then, they're in agony over the separation. And then finally they see the parents and they run and hug the parents. And that, emotion is so strong that the child is going to cry. The child is not crying out of fear or hunger or anything like this, but out of this strong emotion and deep love that they're experiencing at that moment. So many believers among Muslims would be gripped by such strong emotions as they are praying, listening to the Quran being read, large portions of it, and in deep contemplation and in a state of devotion.
It's amazing that we could feel that emotion when it comes to God.
Yes, and of course we need to feel that more and more, and we ask God to give us the grace to have that closeness to Him, such that whether it is expressed in tears or not, but nonetheless that we can experience that, and that God gives us that everlasting communion with Him in the life hereafter.
Thank you for that, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
If you enjoyed this video, click like and subscribe. And please donate to support our work at QuranSpeaks.com.